Well, welcome everybody to the summit, Take a Stand. I am interviewing 35 incredible women over the 4 days who are each sharing a story of triumph over trauma. These are their unique personal experiences and how they have overcome difficulties in their lives. This is predominantly being streamed on YouTube. So if you are new to the channel, please make sure you subscribe, click the notification bell, and also give us a thumbs up. If the content in the interview really resonates with you and you can think of somebody in your network who would really value hearing what Fran has to say, please copy the URL and send it to them. I'm sure they would be very, very grateful. We're going to cover some topics that are sensitive and aren't normally covered in mainstream interviews. So welcome, Fran.
Thank you very much, Wendy. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again. We connected a couple of months ago and we've kept in touch, and we thought this would be a brilliant opportunity to share what Fran has to offer in the arena of trauma, healing and recovery. So Fran, tell me a little bit about, without going into too much detail, your story of triumph over trauma.
Right, where do I begin? Well, I was working in a Vietnamese refugee camp in Hong Kong, and I didn't meet my husband there, but I did meet him in Melbourne, where I went to continue to help people settle in, having left their country. The Vietnamese people had left Vietnam, and many of them had come from different camps around Asia. So I was working in a refugee camp in Hong Kong, but there were others in Malaysia and Thailand and the Philippines. Probably more, but I didn't know about them. But anyway, this is where I went. I went to Melbourne and I met my husband-to-be, who was a Vietnamese boat person. And I helped him with his English. We got married and we had 3 boys. All went fairly swimmingly, except for a few things that I noticed weren't going so well. He didn't communicate that well. He didn't talk about his past that much. And it didn't really occur to me what was going on. One of the things that I have noticed over the past few years is the increase in neuroscience and neurological understanding. Back then, in the 70s and 80s, we had very little understanding. People thought that post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, was something that soldiers got. Didn't realize that many other people also have PTSD. So one day in 2006, when my husband was driving his brand new Toyota Prado, which he was extremely proud of, he got it all set up to be his mobile office. He was an electrical engineering technician, and he would go around fixing machines. And he was so proud of his new car. He was stationary at traffic lights in Garden City in Brisbane. And suddenly this girl comes up in her car, on her phone. She's driving at 90 kph, and she hadn't realized that the cars in front of her were stationary. So she slammed into the back of his car. Bang, 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 5-car pileup. Wow. What happened to him was not so much physical, although he did change physically. In fact, he changed and got thicker around the neck and developed sleep apnea. So when I was lying next to him, I'd listen to his breathing and be waiting for the next breath. And I'd have to nudge him and say, breathe. And he didn't like that. I said, but it's important that you breathe. But yes, he didn't like that because it was interfering with him. And although it was in his best interest, he wasn't happy with that. But then I discovered that he'd actually got post-traumatic stress disorder. And that then began to dot all the I's and cross all the T's that I hadn't realized were missing the I's and the dots and the T strokes. So so that's what's been going on. That's why we're having these difficulties. That's why he's erupting at small little things. And that's why we get blamed for this and for that. And it's over little things. And he would say, well, you know what you've said. And I go, I haven't a clue. I don't know what the next trigger would be, or where it would come from, or we'd just be talking about the boys and can you do this and could you take the rubbish out? I got then accused of calling him lazy. But no, I'm just saying I need to get things ready because the youngest is going to have his tonsils out, and just it would be helpful if you could do the rubbish. Oh, you should have think I'd have asked him to dig a hole to the moon or something. But no, that wasn't going to happen. So eventually, having then discovered that this is what he's got, is PTSD, we try everything. We try medications, we try herbal medicine, we try swimming therapy. That was probably the best one. We tried all sorts of different modalities. And nothing seemed to work. Every medication he tried, he'd sit there scratching because it'd come out in hives. So nothing worked. And he would say to me, it's like I've got video loops going on in my head and I can't turn them off. And he described some of them. He said it was awful when we left Vietnam. We were in our little boat, about 18 of us, all crammed in, and we were in the middle of a typhoon. And it was pitch black because it was nighttime. They had no lights. And all we did was we're going up, 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 up the wave. We didn't know when we get to the top. And then when we crested, we went down, 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 never knowing if we'd ever come out of it. And that was awful. Not only that, they were also attacked by Thai pirates, and all the women were taken off. And the men would sit there and wait because they had nothing else they could possibly have done, being held at gunpoint. And then the third time that they were attacked, they had their boat rammed, and so they were left to drown, basically. Except this is what I'm told happened, is that my husband got out of the boat and used their last bit of rice and wrapped it in a shirt and caulked the hole. And by the grace of God, they got to Thailand to then live in a Thai refugee camp for 3 years, which wasn't a picnic. I think where I was working in Hong Kong was probably the Ritz of refugee camps, if you like. Anyway, he met me in Melbourne. So we both come from different countries to another refugee camp, and then we met in Melbourne. And it seemed to be a good thing. So we got married, and then we had the children. And then having the children was also an issue because he wanted them under his thumb. And they weren't, because they began to develop their own thinking. And well, they didn't like to do that. And he said, but they've got to respect me. And I said, well, you've got to earn it. And he didn't know how to do that. So then it became an even bigger issue. And one night, it really came to a head. I had the eldest one out. He was doing his studying. By this time, he was a late teenager. And the other two were in their early teens. They'd done the washing up. And I was just cleaning up in the kitchen. But they'd gone up to the pool house to get away from their dad, because he wasn't the best person to be around sometimes. And suddenly, my husband erupted from behind me, from where the lounge was, and charged out of the screen door. Being in Australia, we had screens on all the doors to keep the flies out and the fresh air in. So he charged out, and he grabbed a jerry can in one hand and a lighter in the other. And he said, I'm going to burn them. And he shot up towards the pool house. I grabbed a phone and I dialed in the number for the emergency call, but I didn't press it. And I went outside behind him and I said, you can't do that. Oh, yes, I can. I said, you can't, because Michael's stuff's in there as well. He's our tenant. And we don't have anything to do with him apart from the fact that we're giving him a home. And I watched and I waited. And he went up towards the pool house and then around it, still shouting, but went down the back paddocks. Oh my goodness. My heart was hammering in my chest and I didn't know what else to do. I tried to use the phone to call somebody, get somebody to come and help me and just be with me. But nobody would come. So I waited and I watched and I waited, and I was in this tension the whole night until my eldest son came home. I explained to him what had happened and he went up to the pool house and said, Mum, it's okay, I'll be there. Said, okay, at least I know they're all right. Now you might say, why didn't I go to help and sit with them? But then I would get accused of collaborating with them and siding with them against him. The next morning, he acted as like nothing had happened. It was normal. But really, everything had changed. So it was a really tough situation. I didn't know where to turn to or how to cope with it. But when I went for supervision for doing my counselling training, my supervisor said, do you realise what he's done? He's actually broken the marriage contract. He's broken your trust. Have you ever thought about divorcing? That was complete anathema to me. I had married for life. I was going to stick it through no matter what. We'd lived for 23 years contending with stuff. But now it had come to a head. So I thought, okay, how do you go about getting a divorce? It's easy enough to get married, but getting a divorce is not so easy. And you can't just walk out, because then I'd have no money left and nowhere to take the children. So step by step, we worked out how to do this, got the lawyers on side. I got him to be actually legally separated from me, so I didn't divorce him. I thought maybe there's a window of opportunity, maybe we could make it right. I guess I was having pipe dreams, because it never really came good. They say a leopard can't change their spots. So we waited for 18 months and we all lived in the pool house. And finally we got an agreement, we got some money so we could move, and we left. And he was very, very angry. And since that day, he's never spoken to the boys, ever. And so he now actually then filed for divorce about 3 years later, and he's now married again and has a new child. I have gone on, I came back to England to look after my dad, and then I learned about a method whereby this method I've learned from Australia is able to turn the video loops off in people's heads by unlocking their unconscious core beliefs. I couldn't help myself or my marriage, but I can help other people. In just a few short sessions, I can help people to get their mind back on track, get their life back together, and not have to go through so many difficulties or trials or tribulations that my children and I have had to do in a face. Yes, of course, it's an ongoing process and it takes time, but I can certainly help people to speed it up, and that's what I'm about. I want people to get their lives back on track quickly, efficiently, and safely. Thank you for listening.
Fran, with all the uncertainty that was playing out in your relationship, what impact do you think that had on you? Was it a traumatic impact? Did it create difficulties in other relationships going forward? So how did it impact you?
Oh, definitely it impacted me by robbing me of my confidence. I was a nurse, I was good at doing what I did, but then we got picked on at work, or several of us got picked on at work, and I began to question my efficacy. Was I a really good nurse? Did I do a good job? Was I a good mum? My confidence went out the window. I knew I was doing a good job for my patients, and I just clarified that. I got bullied at work, but I knew how to cope with that because I knew who I was in that respect. But even so, to come across other people and say, yes, I'm good at what I do, I didn't have that confidence anymore. So it robbed me of that. And it didn't come back until actually I joined Toastmasters. There I was given a gift. Oh, they're so good.
I love it.
Yes, they gave me the gift of being heard. And that was huge. And then affirmations, you're good at this, you can do this. And it was so encouraging. I would definitely advocate Toastmasters hugely. Love them. Has that answered that question?
Yes. Sorry, it went a bit fuzzy. The connection went a bit fuzzy then. I always find it fascinating how, if trauma isn't resolved, whether that's you or your partner or whoever it is, it will impact others where they just get in. It's a bit like a marshmallow. They just get encased in that other person's trauma, and then they become traumatized, and then that leads onto more incidences of other things that happen in their lives. So it's that compound effect that if it isn't addressed and resolved, it literally just it grows.
Absolutely, that is so true. It can expound and become worse. And I think that over the years, I hadn't realized how insidious the eroding away of my confidence had been. And then also, we've got 3 children as well. Each one of them has had to have some form of going through and working through their own stuff. I know the eldest and the youngest have both had counselling, and it's worked. It is working. They are getting better. But especially the eldest and the youngest, their drive was robbed from them. They didn't know how to push forward because they're always negated in everything they did. My middle child is somewhat different, is a lot more feisty. And so he's driving on, he's doing really well. But yeah, it has taken a while for them all to overcome this and make a difference.
Well, it's good to hear. It's nice to hear that they are on their own personal journeys. What are some of the common themes you see from the people it is that you are working with, that they present with when they want to start to look at the recovery and the healing journey of abuse and trauma?
I think a lot of it starts from when you are 0 to 7. Because as a small child, we're like little sponges, aren't we? We suck up all the information from around about us. And if we are not given the nurture and care that we deserve, sometimes that really detrimentally affects us and gives us unconscious core beliefs that we lock into our brain. And therefore, we have this perception, I'm not worthy. I deserve to be treated like shit. I can't say or do anything that's going to be giving me the benefit of being a good person. And so you get this sort of negativity into your brain. And so it seems to be sort of across people's heads. Abuse me, use me, do what you like with me. And our self-protection jumps in and says, you can't, it's not safe for you, can't go and do that. So the system I've learned is that you can unlock those unconscious core beliefs and say it's okay to be you. It's okay to find out who you really are. And it's okay to stand up and be outstanding. And that, I think, is a key. It's very important that we can get that confidence back and say, yes, I'm on a win-win situation here. No matter what happened in the past, I can use that as a stepping stone to go to the next level. And I think that is also
so I've heard that before. Yeah.
Yes.
So that I'm not good enough is a common theme that you constantly see coming through.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when you can unlock that.
So how do you help your clients? Yeah.
Sorry?
How do you help your clients to navigate, come to terms with change, move forward, past that I'm not good enough?
We're learning to unlock unconscious core beliefs. Dr. Caroline Leaf is one of the people that's put this together in her Clean Up Mental Mess in Your Brain. And it's so powerful to be able to do that. Judith Richards is doing that as well with her system. And we're seeing positive results. It's really empowering and encouraging. So some of the things I use are affirmations to say, I choose to know that my life matters, and to own that, to say it out loud for yourself and say it with guts and determination, not just say, oh yeah, I choose to know my life matters. That's not going to do anything. You've got to actually believe it and own it. I choose to know that my life matters, and I'm going to power on, and I will win, and we're going to get this over and done with. And that, having that attitude, makes such a difference. If we
so
are
that's
caught,
yeah
Go on.
Yeah, so that's one part of it. What else surrounds it?
What else is surrounding it is that the lack of confidence that is eroded. Your self-esteem is eroded by these negativity things that have been said to you as a small child. I think it's Maslow's theory too, as well, and so you can incorporate all of that. And it's amazing how neurological and neuroscience has developed, and we are learning all the time. It hasn't stopped. It's still evolving. And so this modality is also an evolving and growing system. And we're seeing, all of us practitioners are seeing that the results are phenomenal. We're getting people out of what they thought they were trapped in, and then being freed to, I like to say, I want you to be free to fly, free to have your life back, so that you can live the life of your dreams, to live the life that you deserve, because you do deserve a rich, fun, fabulous life, and not be cowering in a corner, afraid to speak. That's not a way of living. That's a way of existing. And if you can have a chance to get out of that and have your life back, like you have done, you've done a huge job of getting away from what you came from to where you are now. That's fantastic, and it needs to be applauded. So I think the other thing is important, is to have acknowledgement and a celebration of where you've come from to where you are now, and to look forward.
Yeah, not so good at the celebration, me. Not so good at the celebration. I'm not so good at the celebration.
Maybe we should have a chat further.
Yeah, I'm still in my trauma of birthdays and Christmases.
I think we should have a chat from the sound of it. That'd be really good. But yes, I know, if you can overcome these things and really get onto the pathway of understanding that there is so much. Life is too short. We only get one shot at life. And if you're trapped in negativity, what a waste. So take courage, step out, and grasp life with both hands, and say, I'm determined to have the best life I can.
I know when I'm struggling, and I wonder if you see this in your clients, is that when I get emotionally triggered, or something gets under my skin, or whatever it is, I have a tendency to be like cut off from the neck down. So like the rest of my body actually doesn't exist. I'm just in my head. I could literally just walk around with my head and not forget the body. The rest of the body just doesn't. Consumed and locked in my head, locked in my thoughts. So I think it's really interesting that you're saying that, there is a switch. You just need to learn how to use the switch to take you out of whatever it is that you're experiencing. So for me, it's being in your head. For other people, it will mean different things for them. So it's interesting to know that there is a switch that you can use to help manage your state effectively. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
No, that's what you said it very well. And what you're right is, because there is a little brain switch that we have. Our cells have got an on and an off switch. And this modality helps you to turn it back on again. So, oh, wow, there is life and it is worth living. And if you unlock the unconscious core beliefs of what you absorbed as a small child being abused, let go of that, deal with that. Say, that's over now and you're safe now. That's in the past. I can put it in the filing cabinet and file it. It's not, doesn't mean your brain is wiped from it and it's not forgotten, but it does mean that, okay, I understand what happened then, and I can put it back in the filing cabinet and I can move on. And that is very powerful, because a lot of people, it is, and a lot of people have triggers. So if they have a trigger, they keep reliving something over and over again. And that if we can turn that video loop off, which is what we do, then you can get your life back again. Say, oh, I have one client who carried his trauma for 31 years. It got really bad and he was going to finish it. And then he got talked out of doing that, and he was given my card. were two different people. He came to see me, and he sat there and he got skepticism written all across his face. Another counsellor? Sure, this is going to work. And I did the first session with him. A week later, he came back for the second session. And at the end of the session, he had a funny look on his face. I said, what's wrong? And he said, I'm trying to trigger myself, but I can't. I said, great. And he went and he came back the next week and he sat down in the chair and he said, I've been trying to trigger myself all week and I still can't. And I said, oh, good. You mean the mumbo jumbo stuff that I've been talking about is working? And he had to say, so gritted teeth. Yes, it is. Then I saw him a month later for the follow-up appointment. And he said, I've been trying all month to prove you wrong. And I still can't. Yay!
Nice.
And then he came back a month later.
Nice.
And we went for a walk.
Funny.
And we went for a walk and a talk. And he said to me, my one concern is that this will stop working and I'll go back to where I was. And I said to him, it's not me, it's you that have done the work. I'm just your facilitator. But in your mind, you have done the work. So unless you go back into a toxic pond and relive it all again, you are good for life.
Yeah, nice. It's a bit like a domino effect as well, isn't it? Once you have dealt with, resolved one thing, it dissolves so many other things. Other things that were once problems just do not exist anymore.
That's a very powerful way of putting it. I love the domino effect. That's good. Yes, if we do 3 incidences in the person's life and say, right, okay, that's over now and you're safe now. And once they have got those together, as you say, it seems to be a domino effect for the rest of them. And sometimes a client will need to go ongoing maintenance just to say, I want to make sure it's okay. And that's fine too. We can provide that. And I tend to do that on a monthly basis, just to give them that extra support and encouragement, especially if there's still a few niggles somewhere else, because some people are still living in a difficult situation. And so it can help them to get over that too.
Yeah, well, you have to also replace what you've learned with something else. It's a big thing. It's like, if you've been carrying around a rucksack, got a whatever on your back, and you suddenly take that off, it's like the world is a whole different experience. It's
exactly
that. Yeah, that's the bit I love. It's that bit. It's the possibility and the opportunities that are now you can now see and be open to. The world shifts, it changes, your experience changes. It's beautiful. Hard to step forward and to embrace it and to decide to do something about your struggles and what it is that you're struggling with. But once you've made those first steps, the rewards on the other side far outweigh what it is that you're struggling with emotionally in the here and now. Getting over that little bit of resistance, getting over the fear of wanting to. So that's I found can be the worst part, is stepping through that fear to get the help you need.
100%. I totally affirm that is right. When I was back in college doing my counselling training, we had a wonderful wise man talking to us about the human experience. And he said, there's times in life when we go through what's called a liminal space. I thought, what on earth is a liminal space? I'll explain. So if you think about a doorway, especially, for example, if you're going into a lecture, you go through that doorway into the lecture room, you absorb a whole lot more information. And when you come out of the lecture, you're not the same as when you went in, because you've learned some more information. So you've changed, right?
Yep.
So it's a bit like you go into a counselling room, you're going into a liminal space. You're going there deliberately to change things.
Yeah.
And so it takes guts, it takes courage to step through the door. But once you've made that commitment, wow, watch this space.
Yeah, nice. I like that. Watch this space. So if you could say, or if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Oh. If I could tell my younger self one thing, it would be, I wish I'd found this modality sooner so I could have helped my marriage. That would have been good.
Good answer.
Thank you. I'll leave it at that then.
Yeah, it's a great answer, isn't it? It's like, why is it taking me so long to realize this? Why is it taking me? I think there's a couple of things within that. One is that the education isn't there. It's not accessible. We don't know about it. And I've forgotten what the other thing is.
Well, the other thing is,
the education isn't accessible, so we don't. Yeah, that as well. Oh, that was it. That's exactly it. The resistance, the fear, the resistance that comes up to wanting to make the change. So a lot of people just stay paralyzed. And trauma does that. That's trauma's nature. That's what it does. It's good at it.
The number of times I've had a client come to see me and they're really apprehensive and nervous and I didn't even know I'd be able to do this. So it's exactly what I said. You've stepped through the liminal space doorway and you go, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And once you've had the courage to do it, you want change. So if you're determined to have change and things have got to be better than they are now, then step through that space and grab it, because it is this opportunity to make the difference to your life, for yourself, and then for people around you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if you'd like to find out more about Fran, the information will be below the video. So please do reach out. As I said earlier, if you can think of somebody who needs to hear what Fran has to say, needs to hear this conversation, please do share this video with them, because I know the topics and the things that we're talking about can be very emotional for people. Things can bubble up to the surface and you might need to reach out and get help. So you've got Fran's details there. So please do make sure, if you want to, you can reach out, have a chat, have a conversation, and then take it from there. But, you don't have to suffer in silence. Part of the Take a Stand live event is that you take a stand for yourself. It's not about taking a stand against other people. It's about actually taking a stand for myself and looking after myself. Then I can deal with the other things that are going on in my life. But you have to take personal responsibility first. So, take a stand, look after yourself, reach out to me, reach out to Fran, and we will point you in the right direction. But you don't need to deal with this by yourself. Any final words, Fran, before I sign off?
I think what you've just said is brilliant. And it's a bit like if you're in an airplane, if you're going to have an accident or something, you grab the oxygen mask for yourself first so that you can help your child or the next person to you. So it is your life that we're talking about, your life that you want to change and impact. Once you've done that, look how many other people you can help because of what's happened to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Good note to finish on. Thank you very much for your time today, Fran. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your story. I found it absolutely fascinating, and I hope he has managed to resolve his own story and what he's been through, because that's one traumatic event after the other, which just continued, which is often the case. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for the time too.